The return home. The setting sun bathed the small suburban neighborhood in hues of amber and crimson, a scene that felt oddly symbolic as Sergeant David Carter stepped out of the taxi. His military duffel bag slung over his shoulder and boots still covered in desert sand, David inhaled deeply, the familiar scent of pine and freshly cut grass stirring memories of home. After a grueling 18-month deployment overseas, he was finally back where he belonged. David's thoughts were a mix of relief and excitement as he approached the modest, two-story home. His heart raced, not from exertion but from anticipation. Every step closer to the door brought a new wave of emotion. He imagined his wife, Laura, rushing to the door with their 6-year-old daughter, Emily, bounding behind her, arms wide open for the embrace they had been waiting for. It was this image that had sustained him through lonely nights, chaotic days, and moments when he questioned his own resilience. As he climbed the 3 small steps leading to the porch, he noticed the potted plant Emily had insisted on placing there before he left. The pink daisies were slightly wilted, yet they stood as a small testament to the life that thrived in his absence. David smiled, his chest swelling with gratitude. Home. He knocked gently, not wanting to startle anyone, though his heart screamed for him to just burst in. After a moment with no response, he chuckled to himself. Maybe they were in the backyard. Emily always loved playing there, especially with her swing set that David had painstakingly built for her birthday. Fishing his key from his pocket, David unlocked the door. "Laura? Emily," he called out, his voice echoing softly in the empty house. The air was cool, the faint smell of lavender and vanilla, Laura's favorite candles, lingering. He placed his bag down and walked into the living room, his boots clinking against the hardwood floor. Something felt off. The house was eerily quiet, too quiet for a home that typically vibrated with the laughter of a child. "Hello, I'm home," David called again, this time louder, as he moved toward the kitchen. His smile faltered when he noticed a cup of tea sitting half-finished on the counter, the liquid cold and untouched. Suddenly, a strange unease gripped him, a sensation he hadn't felt since the battlefield. His instincts heightened, and his breath quickened. Turning back toward the hallway, David began to check the rooms methodically, his pulse pounding in his ears. He entered the living room once more, scanning it more carefully this time. Then his eyes landed on a figure, a small, lifeless body crumpled on the carpet. Time seemed to freeze. David's breath hitched, and he stood rooted in place, unwilling to believe what his eyes were showing him. "Emily," he whispered, his voice breaking. Dropping to his knees, he crawled to her side. His trembling hands gently turned her over. Her angelic face, pale and still, stared back at him. Tears blurred his vision as he checked her pulse, shaking her shoulders gently, desperate for a response. "Emily, wake up. Daddy's home," he pleaded, his voice rising in panic. "Wake up, baby girl." But there was no response, only the deafening silence that followed. The weight of realization crashed down on him, and David let out a guttural cry, the sound of a father's heartbreak echoing through the empty house. His strong, battle-hardened body shook with sobs as he cradled his daughter in his arms. This couldn't be real. Not Emily. Not his sweet, vibrant little girl who always met him with a smile so bright it could rival the sun. As he held her, memories flashed through his mind. The first time he held her as a baby, her first steps, the way she giggled uncontrollably when he pretended to be a monster chasing her around the house. Those moments felt like a lifetime ago, yet now they were all he had left. David didn't know how long he sat there, clutching Emily and whispering desperate prayers. When he finally gathered the strength to move, he gently laid her back down and reached for his phone with trembling hands. His fingers hovered over the screen, unsure of what to do. Who could he call? What could he even say? Just then, the front door opened, and Laura's voice called out, "David, is that you?" Her tone was cheerful, full of the same anticipation he had carried moments ago. But as she stepped into the living room, her smile disappeared. The sight of David kneeling by Emily's lifeless body rendered her speechless. Her purse fell to the floor with a loud thud, and she let out a scream that pierced through David's already shattered heart. "Laura," he managed to say, his voice barely audible, but she wasn't listening. She dropped to her knees beside Emily, her hands shaking as she reached out to touch her daughter's face. "No, no, no," Laura sobbed, pulling Emily into her arms. "What happened? What happened to her?" she demanded, looking at David through tear-streaked eyes. "I don't know," he stammered, his voice hollow. "I just got here. I found her like this." Laura's cries filled the room, her pain as palpable as David's. For what felt like hours, they stayed there, grieving together, their once whole family now irreparably broken. When the paramedics arrived, summoned by David's eventual call, their professional demeanor couldn't mask the pity in their eyes. They confirmed what David and Laura already knew. Emily was gone. The cause of death wasn't immediately clear, but they assured the devastated parents that an autopsy would provide answers. As the medics gently carried Emily away, David and Laura clung to each other, their shared sorrow binding them in a way that words never could. The house, once a sanctuary of love and laughter, now felt like a hollow shell. And as David stared at the spot where Emily had lain, he felt a new weight settle on his chest, a mix of guilt, anger, and the unbearable pain of loss. Though his heart was broken, David knew one thing for certain. He couldn't let Emily's memory fade. He would find the strength to honor the joy and love she had brought into their lives, even if it meant piecing himself back together one shattered fragment at a time. The aftermath, and the search for answers. The hours following Emily's death felt like an eternity. For David and Laura, time lost all meaning as grief consumed them. They sat in silence after the paramedics left, both struggling to process the unthinkable. The house, once a warm haven of love and laughter, was now heavy with emptiness and despair. David leaned forward on the couch, his hands clasped tightly together as if in prayer. His military training had prepared him for many things: war, danger, and even the possibility of his own death. But nothing could have prepared him for the loss of his child. He stared at the faint impression of Emily's body on the carpet, his mind reeling with unanswered questions. What had happened to his daughter? How could a vibrant, healthy 6-year-old suddenly be gone? Laura sat across from him, her face pale and streaked with tears. Her hands gripped a small stuffed bunny, Emily's favorite toy. She had picked it up off the floor, clutching it like a lifeline. The sight of her like this broke David's heart even further. Laura had always been the strong one, the rock that held their family together during his deployments. But now she looked fragile, like a porcelain doll on the verge of shattering. "I don't understand," Laura whispered, her voice trembling. "She was fine this morning, David. She was playing in the living room, laughing. How could this happen?" David shook his head slowly, unable to meet her gaze. He felt an overwhelming sense of guilt, even though he knew rationally there was nothing he could have done. "I should have been here," he muttered, his voice barely audible. "I should have been here to protect her." "You couldn't have known," Laura replied, though her words sounded hollow even to herself. "You were serving your country, David. This isn't your fault." But David didn't believe her. The weight of his absence felt unbearable, and he couldn't shake the feeling that he had failed as a father. For years, he had justified his long deployments by telling himself he was securing a better future for his family. Now, that future was gone. The autopsy results. The next few days were a blur of tears, condolences, and a suffocating sense of helplessness. Family members and neighbors stopped by to offer their support, but their kind words did little to ease the pain. Every corner of the house seemed to hold a memory of Emily, and each one cut deeper than the last. The phone call from the medical examiner came 3 days after Emily's death. David and Laura sat side by side on the couch as they listened to the somber voice on the other end of the line. Mr. and Mrs. Carter, I'm so sorry for your loss. The examiner began. We've completed the autopsy, and I wanted to share our findings. David gripped Laura's hand tightly, bracing himself for the answer. The examiner continued. Emily's death was caused by a sudden and severe allergic reaction. Anaphylaxis. We found traces of peanuts in her system. Laura gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Peanuts, she echoed. But Emily wasn't allergic to peanuts. She's eaten them before, and she's always been fine. The examiner paused, his tone sympathetic but firm. It's possible her allergy developed recently and went unnoticed. Allergies can sometimes appear later in life, and without immediate treatment, anaphylaxis can be fatal. David felt a wave of anger and frustration rise within him. So, you're telling me this could have been prevented? He demanded, his voice shaking. If we had known, if someone had been there. I'm truly sorry, the examiner said gently. If there's anything else we can do, please don't hesitate to reach out. As the call ended, David slammed the phone down on the table, his chest heaving with emotion. Laura buried her face in her hands, her sobs filling the room. The revelation that Emily's death might have been preventable only deepened their anguish. The search for meaning. In the days that followed, David threw himself into researching allergies and anaphylaxis, desperate to make sense of what had happened. He spent hours online, reading medical articles and personal stories from other families who had experienced similar tragedies. Each new piece of information was like a puzzle piece, slowly painting a picture of a condition he had never fully understood. Laura, meanwhile, found solace in Emily's belongings. She meticulously sorted through her daughter's clothes, toys, and drawings, cherishing each item as a tangible reminder of the little girl they had lost. One evening, as she sifted through a stack of drawings, she came across a crumpled piece of paper tucked inside Emily's favorite coloring book. Unfolding it carefully, Laura's breath caught in her throat. The paper was covered in colorful scribbles and stick figures, but what stood out most was the message scrawled in Emily's uneven handwriting. I love you, Mommy and Daddy, always. Laura clutched the note to her chest, tears streaming down her face. She rushed to show it to David, who read it silently, his own tears spilling over. In that moment, they both felt Emily's presence, as if she were reaching out to comfort them from beyond. The decision to honor her memory. As the weeks passed, David and Laura realized they couldn't let their grief consume them entirely. They owed it to Emily, and to themselves, to find a way to honor her memory. One evening, as they sat together on the couch, David broke the silence. We can't change what happened, he said quietly, but maybe we can prevent it from happening to someone else. We need to do something, Laura. For Emily. Laura nodded, her eyes red but determined. You're right. We can't let her death be in vain. They began brainstorming ways to raise awareness about allergies and anaphylaxis. Laura suggested starting a foundation in Emily's name, one that would provide educational resources for parents and schools. David proposed organizing workshops to teach people how to recognize and respond to allergic reactions. Their ideas gave them a renewed sense of purpose, a way to channel their pain into something positive. Slowly but surely, they began to piece their lives back together, finding strength in their shared mission. A glimmer of hope. One afternoon, as David worked on a proposal for the foundation, he heard a knock at the door. Opening it, he was surprised to see Emily's first-grade teacher, Mrs. Thompson, standing on the porch. Mr. Carter, she said warmly, holding out a small envelope. I found this in Emily's desk at school. I thought you and Laura might want to have it. David thanked her and closed the door, his hands trembling as he opened the envelope. Inside was a simple card with a drawing of a rainbow and the words "Family is forever" written in Emily's handwriting. On the back, she had written a short message. Daddy, I miss you, but I know you're being brave. Love, Emily. David clutched the card tightly, his heart aching yet strangely comforted. Emily's words felt like a reminder of the bond they would always share, a bond that even death couldn't break. As he showed the card to Laura, they both smiled through their tears. It was a small glimmer of hope, a sign that Emily's love would always guide them. Turning grief into action. The pain of Emily's loss remained a constant presence, like a shadow that followed David and Laura everywhere they went. But amid the sorrow, a flicker of purpose had begun to grow. The foundation they envisioned in Emily's memory was no longer just an idea. It was a mission that gave them a reason to wake up each morning. David sat in the quiet of their living room, papers spread across the coffee table. The room felt emptier without Emily's giggles echoing through it, but her spirit lingered in every corner. Her drawings still adorned the fridge, and her favorite stuffed animals sat neatly on the shelf where she had left them. David's focus was fixed on the laptop in front of him, where he was drafting the first proposal for the foundation. The words came slowly at first, but as he thought about Emily, they began to flow. The Emily Grace Foundation aims to prevent tragedies caused by undiagnosed allergies through education, advocacy, and support. No family should endure the heartbreak of losing a child to something that can be understood and managed with the right knowledge. He paused, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. The memory of Emily's lifeless body on the floor flashed through his mind, and he closed his eyes, taking a deep breath to steady himself. This foundation wasn't just about raising awareness. It was about giving meaning to her short but beautiful life. Finding allies. Laura walked into the room, carrying 2 mugs of coffee. She placed one in front of David and sat beside him, glancing at the papers on the table. "How's it coming along?" she asked softly. David rubbed the back of his neck. "Slow, but I think I'm getting there. It just feels so big, you know. Like there's so much to do, and I don't even know where to start." Laura placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "We'll figure it out together. Emily wouldn't want us to give up." Her words gave David the boost he needed. Over the next few weeks, they began reaching out to friends, family, and community members who had offered their support after Emily's death. They were surprised and touched by how many people wanted to help. One of Laura's colleagues at the school volunteered to design a logo for the foundation, while a neighbor who worked in marketing offered to help with promotional materials. David also contacted local pediatricians, allergy specialists, and school administrators, hoping to build partnerships. Many of them responded enthusiastically, sharing stories of families who had faced similar challenges. Slowly but surely, the pieces began to fall into place. The first workshop. The first major milestone for the Emily Grace Foundation was a community workshop on allergy awareness. David and Laura worked tirelessly to organize the event, which was held in the local library's meeting room. They were nervous as they set up chairs, arranged pamphlets, and tested the projector for their presentation. Would anyone show up? Would they be able to convey the urgency of their mission? To their surprise, the room began to fill up quickly. Parents with young children, teachers, and even a few high school students trickled in, curious about the workshop. David felt a lump in his throat as he scanned the crowd. This was exactly what they had hoped for, a chance to make a difference. Laura opened the session with a heartfelt speech about Emily, sharing her daughter's love for art, her infectious laughter, and her unexpected passing. "We didn't know Emily had developed a peanut allergy," she said, her voice trembling. "If we had, we might still have her with us today. That's why we're here, to make sure other families don't have to experience the same heartbreak." David took over from there, presenting slides on the symptoms of anaphylaxis, how to use an epinephrine autoinjector, and the importance of allergy testing. The audience listened intently, nodding as he spoke. After the presentation, several parents approached David and Laura to thank them for their efforts. One mother, holding the hand of her 5-year-old son, shared her story. "My son was diagnosed with a tree nut allergy last year," she said. "We had no idea until he had a reaction at a birthday party. What you're doing here is so important. You're saving lives." Her words brought tears to Laura's eyes. For the first time since Emily's death, She felt a glimmer of hope that their pain could lead to something good. The ripple effect. As word about the Emily Grace Foundation spread, so did its impact. David and Laura began receiving emails and letters from people across the country who had heard about their work. Some shared stories of their own struggles with allergies, while others expressed gratitude for the awareness the foundation was raising. One letter, in particular, stood out to David. It was from a father in a neighboring town who had recently discovered his daughter's severe allergy to milk. "Because of your workshop, we got her tested and now carry an EpiPen everywhere we go," the letter read. "You may have saved her life. Thank you." David read the letter aloud to Laura, his voice breaking with emotion. "This is why we're doing this," he said. "For Emily, and for all the kids like her. A new normal." Balancing the demands of the foundation with their own healing was no easy task. There were days when the grief hit them like a wave, threatening to pull them under. On those days, David would retreat to Emily's room, sitting among her belongings and letting the tears flow. Laura found solace in journaling, pouring her thoughts and memories onto the pages. But there were also moments of joy, small but meaningful signs that life could continue. When they hosted a second workshop and saw an even larger turnout, they felt a sense of pride. When a local news station covered their work, they felt Emily's legacy growing. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Laura turned to David. "Do you think Emily would be proud of us?" she asked. David nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "I think she'd be proud. And I think she'd want us to keep going." Looking ahead, the Emily Grace Foundation continued to grow, becoming a beacon of hope for families navigating the challenges of allergies. David and Laura expanded their efforts, advocating for policy changes in schools and pushing for more accessible allergy testing. Each new milestone felt like a tribute to Emily, a way of keeping her memory alive. Through their grief, David and Laura discovered a strength they never knew they had. They learned that even in the face of unimaginable loss, it was possible to create something meaningful. And though the pain of losing Emily would never fully fade, her love and light remained a constant presence in their lives. Building a legacy. As the Emily Grace Foundation grew, David and Laura's mission began to reach beyond their small town. What had started as a heartfelt attempt to honor their daughter's memory had blossomed into a movement that touched lives across the country. Their work was no longer just about awareness. It was about systemic change, ensuring no child would ever face the same fate as Emily. But with growth came challenges, and the journey to build Emily's legacy tested their resilience in ways they hadn't anticipated. A national spotlight. The turning point came when a local journalist published a feature about the Emily Grace Foundation in the town's newspaper. The story was shared online, and within days, it caught the attention of a national news outlet. A week later, David and Laura found themselves sitting in a brightly lit studio in New York City, being interviewed for a morning show. Laura smoothed the hem of her dress nervously as the cameras rolled. David squeezed her hand, offering silent reassurance. The host, a poised woman with a warm smile, began the interview by asking about Emily. "She was our sunshine," Laura said, her voice trembling slightly. "Emily had this way of lighting up a room with just her smile. Losing her was the hardest thing we've ever faced. But we knew we had to do something to honor her and protect other children." David chimed in, his voice steady but full of emotion. The Emily Grace Foundation is about more than just raising awareness. It's about education, action, and change. Too many parents, like us, don't realize how quickly allergies can turn life-threatening. We want to change that. The host nodded, visibly moved. "Your story is heartbreaking, but what you've created is truly inspiring. What's next for the foundation?" David and Laura shared their plans for a national campaign to implement mandatory allergy education in schools. By the end of the segment, the studio audience gave them a standing ovation. As they left the building, their phones buzzed with messages of support and donations pouring into the foundation's website. The push for policy change. Buoyed by the media attention, David and Laura turned their focus to advocacy. They began working with lawmakers to draft a bill that would require schools to have allergy action plans, provide epinephrine auto-injectors, and educate staff about recognizing and responding to allergic reactions. Navigating the political landscape was daunting. David's military experience had taught him discipline and persistence, but this was an entirely new battlefield. He spent countless hours in meetings with legislators, sharing Emily's story and explaining the importance of the proposed law. Laura, meanwhile, rallied support from parents, teachers, and medical professionals. She organized letter-writing campaigns and petition drives, ensuring their voices were heard. "This isn't just about our family," she told one senator during a particularly tense meeting. "It's about every family who could lose a child because they didn't know what to do." The work was exhausting, and progress was slow. There were setbacks, bills stalled in committee, funding concerns, and even skepticism from some lawmakers who didn't see allergies as a pressing issue. But David and Laura refused to give up. Every step forward, no matter how small, felt like a victory. The weight of sacrifice. As the foundation expanded, so did the demands on David and Laura's time. Balancing their advocacy work with their personal grief was a constant struggle. There were days when the weight of their loss felt unbearable, when they questioned whether they had the strength to keep going. David often found solace in Emily's room, sitting on the edge of her bed and running his fingers over her favorite stuffed bunny. "I miss you, sweetheart," he would whisper, his voice thick with emotion. "I hope we're making you proud." Laura coped by immersing herself in the foundation's projects, but even she had moments when the grief overwhelmed her. One evening, as she worked late in her home office, she came across a video of Emily singing the silly song they had made up together. Hearing her daughter's voice again brought both comfort and pain, and she sat there for hours, crying and laughing at the same time. Through it all, David and Laura leaned on each other. They knew they couldn't carry this burden alone, and their shared mission gave them a sense of purpose that helped them navigate the darkest moments. The community rallies. One of the most rewarding aspects of their work was seeing the impact it had on their community. Parents who had attended their workshops began sharing stories of how the information had helped them protect their children. Teachers started incorporating allergy education into their lesson plans, and local businesses began displaying allergy-friendly options. The foundation also organized an annual event called Emily's Day, a community festival dedicated to raising awareness about allergies. The first festival was held at the town park, where David and Laura set up booths, games, and activities for families. There were workshops on allergy management, cooking demonstrations for allergy-friendly meals, and even a puppet show to teach kids about staying safe. As David stood on the stage to thank everyone for attending, he looked out at the sea of faces, parents, children, teachers, and neighbors, and felt a deep sense of fulfillment. "This is Emily's legacy," he said, his voice breaking. "This is how her light continues to shine. A new beginning." Months turned into years, and the Emily Grace Foundation continued to grow. The allergy education bill they had fought for was finally passed, becoming a landmark victory for their cause. Schools across the state, and eventually the country, implemented new policies to protect children with allergies. David and Laura also launched a scholarship program in Emily's name, awarding grants to students pursuing careers in healthcare and education. Each recipient received a letter from David and Laura, reminding them of the importance of their work. One day, as David sorted through the foundation's mail, he came across a letter from a young woman who had received the scholarship. She wrote about how Emily's story had inspired her to become a nurse and how she had already saved a child's life by recognizing the signs of anaphylaxis. "Emily's legacy lives on in every life we save," she wrote. David shared the letter with Laura, and they both wept, their hearts full of pride and gratitude, honoring her forever. On what would have been Emily's 10th birthday, David and Laura visited her grave, as they did every year. They'd brought pink daisies, her favorite, and a small note they had written together. As they placed the flowers on the headstone, They stood in silence, holding each other close. "We love you, Emily," Laura whispered. "You'll always be with us." David nodded, his eyes fixed on the inscription. Emily Grace Carter. Our sunshine, forever in our hearts. As they walked back to their car, hand in hand, they felt a sense of peace. Emily's life, though short, had left an indelible mark on the world. Through the foundation, her memory would continue to inspire, protect, and heal. Challenges and triumphs on the road ahead. The Emily Grace Foundation had grown into a nationwide initiative, impacting countless lives. Schools implemented allergy safety protocols. Families received education on recognizing and managing severe allergic reactions, and children's lives were being saved. Yet, as David and Laura discovered, success brought with it new challenges that tested their determination and vision. The struggles of expansion. As the foundation expanded its reach, the logistical demands became overwhelming. David and Laura, once the sole driving force behind the organization, realized they couldn't manage everything on their own. Meetings, fundraising campaigns, and outreach programs piled up, leaving them both physically and emotionally drained. David stared at the spreadsheets on his laptop one evening, his eyes red from exhaustion. "We're barely breaking even," he muttered, rubbing his temples. The influx of donations that had poured in during the foundation's early days had begun to dwindle as public attention shifted to other causes. Laura, sitting across from him with a stack of grant applications, sighed heavily. "We need more staff," she said, pushing her hair back from her face. "But hiring people means more expenses. It's a catch-22. David closed his laptop and leaned back in his chair. "I just don't want us to lose sight of why we started this. It's about Emily, not bureaucracy." Laura reached out and squeezed his hand. "We won't lose sight of that," she said firmly. "But we have to adapt. Emily's legacy is worth fighting for." After much deliberation, they decided to bring on a small team of professionals to help manage the foundation. They hired a grant writer to secure funding, a program coordinator to oversee workshops, and a communications specialist to spread their message more effectively. While it was difficult for David and Laura to relinquish control, the new team allowed them to focus on what mattered most: connecting with the people their work was helping. Facing criticism. With the foundation's growing visibility came scrutiny. While many praised their efforts, others questioned their methods. Critics accused the foundation of sensationalizing allergies, or suggested their programs created unnecessary fear among parents. One particularly scathing article in a prominent magazine labeled the foundation's mission as overreactive and alarmist. The writer argued that severe allergies were rare, and that the resources being allocated to the cause could be better used elsewhere. David read the article in disbelief, his anger simmering. "They don't understand," he said, tossing the magazine onto the coffee table. "They have no idea what it's like to lose a child." Laura, ever the diplomat, placed a hand on his arm. "It's frustrating, but this just means we need to educate people even more. Let's use this as an opportunity to tell Emily's story again." Together, they wrote a response that was published in the magazine's next issue. They shared Emily's journey and emphasized the preventable nature of her death. "This isn't about fear," they wrote. "It's about empowerment. Every child deserves to be safe, and every parent deserves to have the knowledge to protect their child." The article resonated deeply with readers, and donations to the foundation surged in the following weeks. A personal struggle. Amid the external challenges, David faced an internal battle. His grief, though somewhat tempered by the passage of time, remained a constant undercurrent in his life. He began experiencing vivid dreams of Emily, moments where she appeared happy and alive, only for him to wake up and confront the painful reality. One evening, after a particularly emotional dream, David confided in Laura. "I keep seeing her," he said, his voice shaking. "In my dreams, she's always smiling, always calling out to me. And then I wake up, and she's gone all over again." Laura's eyes filled with tears as she took his hand. "I dream about her too," she admitted. "I think it's her way of staying with us. She'll always be a part of us, David." David nodded, but the ache in his chest remained. He decided to seek counseling, something he had resisted for a long time. Through therapy, he learned to navigate his grief more effectively, finding ways to honor Emily without being consumed by the pain of her absence, a breakthrough moment. One of the Foundation's most ambitious projects was the creation of a mobile app designed to educate users about allergies. The app included features like an allergy symptom checker, a guide to using epinephrine auto-injectors, and resources for finding allergy-friendly products. Development of the app was a significant investment, and David and Laura anxiously awaited its launch. On the day it went live, they held their breath, watching the download counter climb steadily. Within a week, the app had been downloaded over 50,000 times. Positive reviews poured in from parents, teachers, and even teenagers. One review stood out to Laura. A mother wrote about how the app had helped her recognize her child's first allergic reaction and administer life-saving medication. "This is it," Laura said, showing the review to David. "This is why we're doing this." David smiled, a rare but genuine expression of pride. "Emily would have loved this," he said. "She always loved playing with my phone. She'd probably think it's so cool." Reaching new heights. With the success of the app, the Emily Grace Foundation reached a new level of impact. They expanded their programs internationally, partnering with organizations in Europe, Asia, and Africa to share their resources and expertise. One memorable moment came when David and Laura were invited to speak at a global health conference in Geneva. Standing on stage before an audience of policymakers and medical professionals, they felt the weight of their journey and the significance of their mission. "Emily's story is just one of many," David said during his speech. "But every story matters. Every life matters. And together, we can ensure that no parent has to endure the pain of losing their child to something preventable." The audience erupted in applause, and David and Laura felt an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. They were no longer just grieving parents. They were advocates, change-makers, and guardians of Emily's legacy. Finding peace. Years passed, and the Foundation became a fixture in the world of allergy education and advocacy. David and Laura still carried their grief, but it was no longer a crushing weight. It had transformed into a quiet strength, a reminder of the love that had inspired their journey. On the anniversary of Emily's death, they visited her favorite park, where the Foundation had recently installed a memorial bench. The plaque read, "In loving memory of Emily Grace Carter, whose light continues to shine." As they sat together, watching children play on the swings, Laura leaned her head on David's shoulder. "Do you think she'd be proud of us?" she asked softly. David wrapped an arm around her. "I know she would be," he said. "She always believed in us." In that moment, surrounded by the laughter of children and the warmth of the sun, David and Laura felt a sense of peace. Emily's legacy was alive, not just in the Foundation, but in the lives they had touched, and the love that would endure forever. The legacy lives on. The Emily Grace Foundation was no longer just a tribute to one child's life. It had become a beacon of hope and education for families across the globe. The impact of their work extended far beyond what David and Laura Carter had ever imagined. Yet, even as they celebrated milestones and triumphs, they never forgot the little girl who had inspired it all. This final chapter of their journey would test their resilience, strengthen their bond, and remind them that Emily's legacy was not just about the Foundation. It was about the countless lives she continued to touch. A new generation of advocates. Over the years, the Foundation's reach expanded to include a youth advocacy program, designed to empower teenagers to become allergy ambassadors in their schools and communities. David and Laura realized that children and teens could be powerful agents of change, helping their peers understand the importance of allergy awareness and inclusion. One of the standout advocates was a 16-year-old named Grace, whose story deeply resonated with David and Laura. Grace had been diagnosed with a severe tree nut allergy at a young age and had faced challenges growing up, from bullying to feeling excluded at social events. Inspired by the Foundation's mission, she began organizing workshops at her school and even started a blog to share her experiences. Grace was invited to speak at one of the Foundation's annual conferences. As she stood on stage, her voice steady and confident, she addressed the crowd. "The Emily Grace Foundation gave me the tools to stand up for myself and others like me. I want every child with allergies to know they're not alone, and that their safety matters." After her speech, David and Laura approached her, their eyes glistening with tears. "You're incredible," Laura said, embracing her. "Emily would be so proud of you." Grace smiled. "She's the reason I do this. I feel like I know her through everything you've built." A heartfelt recognition. One of the most emotional moments for David and Laura came when they were invited to Washington, D.C. to receive a humanitarian award for their work. The ceremony was a grand affair, attended by politicians, activists, and nonprofit leaders. As David adjusted his tie backstage, he couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness. He wished Emily could be there to see how far her legacy had come. When their names were called, David and Laura walked onto the stage, greeted by a standing ovation. Laura stepped up to the microphone, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "We are humbled by this recognition," she began. "But this isn't about us. It's about our daughter, Emily. She was 6 years old when we lost her, but in those 6 years, she taught us more about love, joy, and resilience than we could ever have imagined. This foundation exists because of her, and it exists for every child and every family who deserves to live without fear." David added, "This award belongs to Emily, and to all of you who have supported our mission. Together, we've saved lives, educated communities, and created a world where children with allergies can thrive. Thank you for helping us turn our grief into hope." As they left the stage, they were approached by countless attendees who shared their own stories of how the Foundation had touched their lives. One couple tearfully recounted how they had nearly lost their son to an allergic reaction, but had recognized the signs thanks to the Foundation's resources. "You saved our child," the mother said, gripping Laura's hand. "You gave us a second chance, an unexpected gift." On what would have been Emily's 15th birthday, David and Laura received a surprise from the Foundation's staff. Their team had collaborated with a local artist to create a mural in Emily's honor, located at the park where the annual Emily's Day Festival was held. The mural depicted a vibrant, whimsical scene, a rainbow stretching across a blue sky, children playing on swings, and in the center, a little girl with golden hair and a radiant smile. Beneath the artwork were the words, "Emily Grace Carter, a light that shines forever." When David and Laura saw the mural for the first time, they were overwhelmed with emotion. It was as if Emily's spirit had been brought to life in a way that everyone could see and feel. "She would have loved this," David said, his voice thick with tears. "She always loved rainbows." The mural quickly became a beloved landmark in the community, a place where families gathered to take photos, leave flowers, or simply reflect. For David and Laura, it was a reminder that Emily's light continued to shine, even in her absence. Passing the torch. As the Foundation celebrated its 15th anniversary, David and Laura began to think about the future. They were proud of what they had built, but they also knew it was time to pass the torch to a new generation of leaders who could carry the mission forward. They worked closely with their board of directors to identify a successor, someone who shared their passion and vision. After months of deliberation, they chose Dr. Maria Sanchez, a pediatric allergist who had been an early supporter of the Foundation. Maria had a deep understanding of the challenges faced by families dealing with allergies and a clear plan for expanding the Foundation's reach even further. At the Foundation's annual gala, David and Laura officially announced their transition. Standing side by side, they addressed the crowd one last time as co-directors. "This isn't goodbye," Laura said. "The Foundation will always be a part of our lives, but we believe it's time for new voices and new ideas to carry Emily's legacy forward. David added, Emily's story started with us, but it doesn't end here. It continues with every life this foundation touches. Thank you for being part of her journey. The audience erupted in applause, and Maria took the stage to hug David and Laura. I promise to honor Emily's legacy and everything you've built, she said, her voice filled with conviction. A quiet reflection. In the years that followed, David and Laura took a step back from the foundation's day-to-day operations, focusing instead on mentoring new advocates and spending time with their community. They often visited the mural and the bench in Emily's Park, finding solace in the tangible reminders of their daughter's enduring presence. One sunny afternoon, they sat on the bench, watching children run and play. Laura turned to David, her face serene. Do you ever wonder what she'd be like now? She asked softly. Every day, David replied. But I know one thing for sure. She'd be proud. She'd be so proud. As they sat there, hand in hand, they felt a gentle breeze sweep through the park, carrying with it the scent of wildflowers. It was as if Emily was there, watching over them, her laughter echoing in the rustle of the leaves. Emily's legacy lived on, not just in the foundation or the lives it saved, but in the love that David and Laura carried in their hearts. And as long as that love existed, her light would never fade. The legacy beyond measure. As David and Laura Carter moved into the next chapter of their lives, they found that Emily's legacy had grown far beyond their wildest expectations. The Emily Grace Foundation had not only saved lives, but had also ignited a global conversation about allergy awareness, education, and safety. Though their roles within the organization had shifted, their commitment to Emily's memory and the Foundation's mission remained unwavering. This final chapter of their journey would reveal the true depth of Emily's impact, not only on the world, but also on David and Laura themselves. The seeds of global impact. Dr. Maria Sanchez, the Foundation's new director, brought fresh energy and ideas that propelled the organization into international prominence. Under her leadership, the Foundation launched global initiatives, including partnerships with schools, hospitals, and governments in underserved regions. These programs provided free allergy screenings, emergency medication, and educational resources to communities that had little to no access to such services. David and Laura, though retired from day-to-day operations, were deeply involved in these efforts. They traveled to several countries to meet with local leaders and families, witnessing firsthand how Emily's story resonated across cultures. During a visit to a rural village in India, Laura met a mother whose son had recently been diagnosed with a peanut allergy thanks to the Foundation's outreach program. The mother clasped Laura's hands, her eyes brimming with gratitude. Through a translator, she said, "Your daughter's story saved my son's life. Because of her, I know how to protect him." Laura's eyes filled with tears as she embraced the woman. Emily would have loved him, she said, her voice trembling. She loved helping others. These moments reinforced David and Laura's belief that Emily's legacy was universal. It wasn't just about allergy education. It was about love, compassion, and the connections that bound humanity together. A difficult anniversary. As the 20th anniversary of Emily's passing approached, David and Laura found themselves grappling with a mix of emotions. While they were proud of all they had accomplished, the milestone also brought a fresh wave of grief. 20 years was a lifetime, yet to them, it felt like only yesterday that they had held Emily in their arms. Laura decided to channel her emotions into a new project, a memoir about their journey. The book, titled Forever Our Sunshine, would chronicle their experiences as parents, advocates, and survivors of loss. Writing it was both cathartic and challenging, as it forced her to revisit painful memories, while also celebrating Emily's vibrant spirit. David, meanwhile, threw himself into planning a special event to mark the anniversary. He envisioned a global day of remembrance and action, during which families, schools, and communities would come together to honor Emily and raise awareness about allergies. On the morning of the anniversary, the event, dubbed Emily's Day of Light, was broadcast worldwide. Millions of people participated, lighting candles in Emily's memory, sharing stories of hope, and committing to making the world safer for children with allergies. As David and Laura watched the live streams from their living room, they were overwhelmed by the outpouring of love and support. "She's everywhere," Laura whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Her light is everywhere." A surprising discovery. One quiet afternoon, as David sorted through a box of old family photos, he stumbled upon a small, unopened envelope tucked between two albums. The handwriting on the front was unmistakable: Emily's. His heart pounded as he called Laura into the room. Together, they carefully opened the envelope and unfolded the piece of paper inside. It was a note Emily had written shortly before David's deployment, likely intended for him to find while he was away. The note read, "Dear Daddy, I love you so much. Even if you're far away, I'll always be with you. Don't be sad because I'm your sunshine. And sunshine is forever. Love, Emily." David and Laura sat in stunned silence, the note a poignant reminder of Emily's enduring presence in their lives. "She knew," David said finally, his voice breaking. Even at 6 years old, she understood something we're only just beginning to grasp. Laura nodded, clutching the note to her chest. "She's been guiding us this whole time." They decided to frame the note and place it in the Foundation's main office, where it became a source of inspiration for everyone who worked there. The next generation. As David and Laura reflected on their journey, they were heartened by the knowledge that Emily's legacy would continue long after they were gone. Many of the children who had benefited from the Foundation's programs were now young adults, pursuing careers in medicine, education, and advocacy. One such individual was Grace, the teenager they had met years earlier. Now a medical student, she was preparing to specialize in pediatric immunology, inspired by her experiences as an allergy ambassador. She often visited David and Laura, seeking their guidance and sharing her plans. "I owe so much to Emily," she told them during one visit. "Her story changed the course of my life." David smiled, his eyes twinkling with pride. "You're part of her story now, Grace, and you're writing the next chapter." A final tribute. In their later years, David and Laura decided to create a lasting physical tribute to Emily, a children's hospital dedicated to allergy research and treatment. The Emily Grace Carter Memorial Hospital would serve as both a state-of-the-art medical facility and a center for innovation, ensuring that no child would have to face life-threatening allergies without support. The groundbreaking ceremony was a bittersweet moment. As they stood on the podium, shovels in hand, David and Laura spoke about Emily's enduring impact. "This hospital isn't just a building," Laura said. "It's a promise that Emily's light will continue to shine, bringing hope and healing to families everywhere." A life well lived. David and Laura spent their remaining years as stewards of Emily's legacy, watching as the Foundation and its initiatives grew beyond anything they could have imagined. Though their grief never fully disappeared, it became a quieter presence, a reminder of the love that had fueled their journey. One evening, as they sat together on the porch, David turned to Laura and said, "Do you think we did enough?" Laura smiled, her eyes soft with wisdom. "I think Emily would say we did more than enough." As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, David and Laura felt a deep sense of peace. Emily's light had guided them through their darkest days, and it continued to illuminate the world in ways they would never stop marveling at. Her legacy was more than a foundation, a hospital, or a movement. It was a testament to the power of love, resilience, and the enduring bonds that connect us all. And in that, Emily Grace Carter would live on forever. The eternal light. With the establishment of the Emily Grace Carter Memorial Hospital, David and Laura Carter had created a legacy that would endure for generations. Yet their journey was far from over. They realized that Emily's light, which had illuminated their path and inspired so many, could still shine brighter. In this next chapter, The Foundation's work would expand into uncharted territories, transforming the lives of not just individuals but entire communities. The hospital's first success, the opening of the Emily Grace Carter Memorial Hospital, was met with widespread acclaim. Families from across the country traveled to the facility, seeking specialized care for their children's allergies. The hospital's unique approach combined cutting-edge technology with compassionate care, ensuring that every child felt safe and understood. David and Laura were present for the hospital's first major success story. A 7-year-old girl named Mia arrived at the hospital after experiencing repeated severe allergic reactions that had puzzled doctors in her hometown. The team of specialists at the hospital quickly identified a rare combination of food allergies that had gone undetected. After weeks of treatment and counseling for Mia's family, the little girl left the hospital with a new lease on life. At a press conference celebrating her recovery, Maya shyly handed Laura a drawing she had made, a picture of Emily standing under a rainbow, holding Mia's hand. "This is for you," Maya said softly, "because Emily saved me." Laura clutched the drawing to her chest, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you, Mia," she whispered. "You're part of her light now." The story of Mia's recovery was shared widely, bringing renewed attention to the Foundation's mission and attracting support from philanthropists and organizations worldwide. Revolutionizing allergy research. One of the hospital's primary goals was to advance allergy research, and it wasn't long before its team of scientists made groundbreaking discoveries. A partnership with leading universities and biotech companies allowed the hospital to develop new diagnostic tools and treatments, including an innovative allergy desensitization therapy. David and Laura, though not scientists themselves, were deeply involved in the process. They met regularly with the research team, asking questions and sharing their hopes for a world where allergies were no longer a life-threatening concern. At one such meeting, Dr. Maria Sanchez shared exciting news. "We've developed a prototype for a wearable device that can detect allergens in food before it's consumed," she explained. "It could be a game changer for families living with severe allergies." The device, which resembled a small bracelet, quickly became a focal point of the Foundation's work. After successful trials, it was made available to families at no cost, thanks to a generous donation from a tech entrepreneur who had been inspired by Emily's story. Seeing children and parents embrace this new technology brought David and Laura immense joy. "This is what Emily would have wanted," David said. "She always cared about helping others." Expanding the Foundation's mission. While allergies remained the Foundation's primary focus, David and Laura began to explore ways to address other challenges facing children and families. They launched initiatives aimed at promoting mental health, supporting grieving families, and fostering inclusive communities. One such program, called Hearts of Light, provided counseling and peer support for parents who had lost children. David and Laura became mentors within the program, sharing their own journey and offering hope to others navigating the darkest moments of their lives. During one session, a father who had recently lost his son to a sudden illness spoke through tears. "I don't know how to keep going," he admitted. "The pain is unbearable." David placed a hand on the man's shoulder. "I won't tell you it gets easier," he said honestly, "but I will tell you this. Your child's love is still with you, and every time you take a step forward, you're carrying that love with you." The man nodded, his expression softening. "Thank you," he said. "I needed to hear that." The program became one of the Foundation's most impactful initiatives, helping countless families find strength and healing in the wake of tragedy. An unexpected reunion. One day, while visiting the hospital, David and Laura were approached by an elderly man who introduced himself as John Bennett. "I don't know if you remember me," he said, "but I was one of the paramedics who responded the day Emily passed away." David and Laura exchanged stunned glances. They had often thought about the paramedics who had been there that fateful day but had never had the opportunity to speak with them. "I've carried that day with me for years," John continued, his voice filled with emotion. "I always wished I could have done more. But seeing what you've built, seeing the lives you've saved, It gives me peace. Emily's story changed my life, too. Laura reached out and hugged him, her tears falling freely. You were there when we needed you, she said. And now you're here to see how far Emily's light has spread. The encounter reminded David and Laura of the countless people who had been part of their journey, each playing a role in transforming their grief into hope. A global movement. As the foundation continued to grow, it inspired similar initiatives around the world. Communities in Africa, Asia, and South America began adopting the foundation's programs, tailoring them to address local needs. David and Laura traveled extensively, meeting with leaders and families who shared their vision. During a visit to a remote village in Kenya, they witnessed the impact of their work firsthand. A young boy named Kofi, who had nearly died from an undiagnosed allergy, was now thriving thanks to the foundation's outreach. His mother approached David and Laura, her eyes shining with gratitude. You brought hope to our village, she said. Emily's story is now our story. In that moment, David and Laura realized that Emily's light had transcended borders, uniting people across cultures and continents in a shared mission of love and compassion. A lasting legacy. As David and Laura entered their twilight years, they reflected on the incredible journey they had undertaken. They spent their days surrounded by friends, family, and the countless individuals whose lives had been touched by Emily's legacy. One sunny afternoon, they returned to the park where Emily's mural stood. The colors had faded slightly over the years, but the message remained as vibrant as ever. Emily Grace Carter, the light that shines forever. Sitting on the bench beneath the mural, David took Laura's hand. We did it, he said quietly. We kept our promise to her. Laura nodded, a peaceful smile on her face. And her light will keep shining, long after we're gone. As they watched children laugh and play, they felt Emily's presence all around them, in the rustling of the leaves, the warmth of the sun, and the joy in every child's smile. Her legacy was more than a foundation, a hospital, or a movement. It was a reminder that even the smallest light could illuminate the darkest corners of the world, and that love, once given, never truly fades. Emily Grace Carter's story had become a part of countless lives, and her light would continue to shine forever.